Well, joining us now is Shruti Kapoor. She's the founder of Sayfty Trust, a women's education and empowerment group, and she's also a gender equality activist and economist. Shruti, thanks for being with us. That story was about women in Venezuela and Latin America, but this isn't unique to the region.
Not at all, Roee. Thanks for having me.
So where else are we seeing this across the world?
Pretty much everywhere. 2020 really marked the 25th year of the Beijing Platform of Action, and it was intended to be a groundbreaking year in terms of gender equality. However, due to the pandemic, we saw that the limited gains that the world had seen in over the past decade in terms of gender equality are at risk of being rolled back globally. Whether it is health, economy, or social protection, the impact of COVID-19 on women and girls is exacerbated across the world. We are talking about countries, advanced developed countries like the US, India, and many, many more. In fact, this recession that has been caused by COVID-19 is now being dubbed as she-cession because it has disproportionately affected women and girls globally. So, I quickly want to highlight three key areas, or maybe four key areas. Let's talk about the economic impacts that this has had on women and girls. We all know that women and girls, are generally earning less, they're saving less, they are in jobs which are more insecure. And in fact, a recent study by the McKinsey Institute has shown that women have lost jobs almost at twice the rate of men during this pandemic, again across the world. More than 2.3 million women have dropped out of the labor force in the US specifically. And this is just the US. You can imagine, other countries like India where women have been impacted in terms of the unpaid care work. In fact, recently UNESCO came out that 1.52 billion children are out of schools now. And so, who does it fall on to take care of these children at home? Women. And a lot of women are now are being forced into giving up their jobs to provide childcare, to provide elderly care, and this is all unpaid work. We're also seeing huge impacts on their health, on the health of women. And when we talk about health, we're talking about mental and physical health. 70% of the health workforce is comprised of women. These are doctors, nurses, these are midwives, community workers who have been on the front line pretty much all of last year and this year, and they are being impacted in great ways because a lot of services and funding from sexual and reproductive health rights have been taken away. Survivors of gender-based violence have been hugely impacted during this pandemic in 2020. And again, this is across, unfortunately, globally. We saw huge rises in domestic violence cases in India, in France, in Spain, you name the country, and domestic violence cases were rising. So when you're asking me about which regions, unfortunately, it's pretty much everywhere. Women have disproportionately been impacted by this pandemic in huge ways across the world, Roee.
Shruti, they say that representation matters. The current administration here in the U.S. has a woman vice president and more women in the cabinet than ever before. You're an activist, so I have to ask, how responsive has this administration been to the struggle of women during COVID, and what needs to happen to overcome it?
Yeah, I would say that this administration is, fairly new. They've only been in office for the past 2.5 months now. However, this is really the first time we have a women women vice president, and so we in the U.S. and the world is really hopeful in terms of policies. In terms of we're already seeing the Biden administration bring in a lot more women and a diverse set of people onto their cabinet. And so again, in terms of making policies in gender responsiveness towards the coronavirus pandemic, we are very hopeful that this administration will do a much better job in terms of allocating resources, their funds, and their policies, keeping in mind women and keeping women at the center of it. And across the globe also, even though women occupy only 7% of the world leaders, there are very few countries that have a women world leader, but we have seen in examples like New Zealand, where Prime Minister Jacinda has done a fabulous job. Even though it's a really small country, New Zealand is one of the first countries which absolutely has no coronavirus cases, and it's been said that now finally in 2021, we do have research and data which shows that countries which are being led by women have done a much better job at managing this pandemic, both in terms of policy and in allocating funds and resources. We've seen it in Norwegia, we've seen it in Iceland, Finland, Taiwan. These are all women leader led countries where they have done a much better job in terms of, let's say, using technology to track, to screen, to test coronavirus virus patients. And yeah, so I'm very hopeful that this administration will do a much better job that has been done in the past in terms of tackling this pandemic and keeping women at the center of it.
Shruti Kapoor from Sayfty Trust, thank you for your insight.
Thank you for having me.